technical capstone students, and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to be doing some vulnerability scanning and then vulnerability exploitation of the vulnerabilities that you discover. So the first thing we need to do is we need to download a vulnerability scanner into Kali Linux on the Ohio Cyber Range. So the vulnerability scanner we're going to be using is called Nexus. Nexus is an industry standard vulnerability scanning tool. You are highly likely to encounter Nexus in your day-to-day work as security professionals, either because you use it or because you're being handed results from a Nexus vulnerability scan. So it's a good tool to get hands-on with. Tenable, the company that makes Nexus, offers a free version called Nexus Essentials that you can use on a limited number of IP addresses, and that's the tool we're going to be using in this class. So the first thing you need to do, obviously, is to download Nexus. And so if you're in the instructions, you can scroll down and watch this YouTube video, which lays out the steps. So as with any YouTube video you find for any sort of cybersecurity instruction, there are going to be a few places where we need to deviate from practice. So the first thing I need you to pay attention to is that you want to download the 64-bit version that applies to Kali Linux. So there are an awful lot of versions here of Nexus. Nexus, is made for pretty much every system you can imagine. So you do need to find the one that applies to your system. So the easiest way to do this is to, Control F and just look for the word Kali on the page. So the first hit we get is 32-bit. So from Cyber 1 that's probably not the right one. You probably want the 64-bit. So hit another version and you come down here to Debian 9.10. Remember, Kali Linux is based on Debian, and you have the 64-bit. So this is most likely the correct version for you. Go ahead and download it. So the YouTube video walks through the process for doing this. Does it very well. A couple things to note, though. The big one being that when you run the command to install Nexus, you're going to be using the file name of the version you download, which might even be different than this video if they update it between now and when you watch this video. So make sure to, when you actually type out the command to unpackage that download and get it installed, that you're actually pointing at the correct file name. Otherwise, the command won't work. So just again, pay attention to that file name because you're gonna need it later. Once Nexus is up and running, and there's actually a little bit of a step. It's in the YouTube video, so just pay attention. There's a command after you download and install Nexus. There is a command you need to run to get Nexus up and running. To actually get to Nexus is a little interesting, and I'll tell you what. A lot of cybersecurity tools and a lot of IT management tools work this way, and I never quite got used to it. So you're very used to using your browser to do basic IT tasks, right? I mean, that's, basic internet browsing tasks. We get on the browser all the time to get on the internet, but you can also use your browser to access local resources. And so to actually run Nexus, you do it via the browser and you go to, and this is going to deviate a little bit from the instructions. He doesn't use localhost, he writes Kali. So instead for you, type in localhost and 8834, that is the Nexus port. And when you click on this, the first time you are going to get an error, a certificate error, because your browser is not recognizing your local instance of Nexus there, and that's fine. Just ignore that and go to this page. And then the other thing that's going to be great is that you're going to have to create a username and password. There's no reason to make a complex password for now. In the range, you can just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It doesn't matter for the purposes of this lab. But yeah, just create a simple username and password that you'll remember. And then when you launch Nexus the first time, it's going to take forever because it's going to update the plugins, and the plugins are what it uses to identify vulnerabilities. So it is going to be a long process, and it is one you have to babysit so the range doesn't time out on you. So, settle in for 20 minutes or so of just moving your mouse around so that it doesn't go to sleep on you while it updates those plugins. Then, once all that's ready to go, you can sign in. The Nexus user interface, here we get a lovely log4shell warning. The Nexus user interface is really simple. You will find you'll know your IP addresses. We've identified your IP addresses for the various different assets in your range network, and you're going to scan them. So one thing to remember is to make sure that those are turned on, because if your assets are turned off, they won't be scanned. But turn on all the different assets that you have in the range on, get in those IP addresses and blast away, and you'll get a vulnerability report. It's actually really straightforward. I think you'll be shocked at how easy it is. So much easier than the command line interface tools we used in Cyber 1. So this will be a breath of fresh air. Once you're done with that, go ahead and analyze your vulnerabilities. Answer the questions on the sheet over here. That's all no big deal. Then, and I'm not going to demonstrate this because it's pretty easy. But you've used Nmap a lot now in this class, so you'll be able to figure this out. You'll be working against your Metasploit 2 system in the or the Metasploitable 2 system in the range. And you'll be using Nmap in an advanced way to actually run some scripts against common vulnerabilities. So you're actually going to be using Nmap as a vulnerability scanner. In part 3, you're going to install another little application, and you're going to figure out how to mount a drive on a remote computer to your computer so you can steal data out of it. It's a common hacking trick. A little fun activity. You'll go through and you'll actually manage to identify some keys on that device. So this is just a fun little exercise, really straightforward. Go ahead and just follow the directions. It'll work fine. You'll have fun. The next thing that you'll be doing in this lab is you'll be using Metasploit to attack your Metasploitable 2 box in the range. And so you've used Metasploit in another lab, so that'll all be familiar. It all starts up the exact same way. The first step here walks you through an actual exploit. The last step here asks you to go out online and find your own exploits to run against Metasploitable 2. There are all sorts of guides on the internet. I mean, you will find tons of different tips for attacking Metasploit. Just pick one that looks fun and go through it. And that'll be the lab. So at the end of this lab, you will have gone ahead and you'll run a scan. You'll have identified and analyzed some vulnerabilities, and you'll launch your own exploits against vulnerabilities in your network. So this is some real hacking stuff. This is what hacking looks like, and this is what penetration testing looks like when you get to the vulnerability exploitation phase. And so yeah, have fun. It'll be great.
This tutorial was prepared by the Center for Cybersecurity and Privacy Protection at Cleveland Marshall College of Law, Cleveland State University.